coming from such a small little community, like you all can branch off as much as you want, but then you can all relate at the same time. And that's kind of how we became friends. Because,
Right.
you know, we weren't definitely meant to be friends
Yeah,
at all
no.
until later on. But
It's one of those small towns. I feel a lot of people who are born and raised there, you know, like kind of talk about the town as if, you know, they would prefer to leave forever and never come back. And a lot of them end up staying there their whole lives. You know, living in the city, I couldn't imagine being a city kid, you know, growing up without acres and acres of, you know, field and sky to play around.
a yard.
Yeah, yard, very important. So yeah, I think the upbringing is definitely kind of front and center when you think about Frankenmuth with the farm fields and the little streams that run through our backyards.
One thing that's I thought about recently is we were so gifted with the ability to just play as loud as we wanted, like in our own home, in our own garage, and not a single complaint ever.
As a very young kid, this music kind of made me really feel something, and there was just such this connection, and there was just something that was so innate about the connection between man and music, and I knew that was what I was going to gravitate toward, and I suppose gravitate's a good word too, because the gravitational pull was strong, because Josh and Jake were already, you know, singing and playing guitar, and I got sucked right into that orbit, and I, you know, landed right there.
I have this distinct memory of when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I wandered down in the basement and always liked to explore things. And one day I went into the back closet room and I found a guitar case, and I was like, what is this? I didn't know we had one of these. And then I was like, okay, well, who plays it? I kind of went upstairs and, Dad, do you play? And he's like, hell no. Not Josie. She's my sister. She's younger than I am. And then I asked my mom, and she's like, yeah, that's mine from the 70s. Like, I haven't probably touched it since. It might not even be in one piece anymore. But we opened it up, and then I, you know, held it and was like, I want to play guitar. And that was my introduction to music. She kind of signed me up for lessons and took lessons for a couple of years. And, you know, there was something there. There was some sort of magic to learning how to play an instrument, but it wasn't as organic as it could have been. I kind of fell flat a couple times, gave it up for a couple of years at a time, got back to middle school, joined middle school band, and that was something kind of cool. The first experience with other musicians creating like a sound, but I still had no gauge of what we were actually doing.
Right, and that's where magic happens.
And that's where magic happens. And then all of a sudden, like the idea of playing the instrument I wanted to, because I was playing French horn in band, and you know
that's a different
it's
instrument.
It's fun.
No
it's
drum
really
kit,
cool.
yeah.
It's no drum kit or electric guitar. And at some point in middle school, we all hooked up and started playing whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, and it was like, okay, there's that sense of freedom in it too, and it's unstoppable.
And then school took the back seat. Bum, bum, bum. Right, plot twist.
Right.
And we actually headed out on tour before we were graduated from high school. That's where it gets interesting.
Learned about weed,
heroin, yeah. We learned, you know,
cocaine.
We grew up quick.
It wasn't a pretty scene.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. We saw some very interesting things. And I think our parents kind of letting us go and do that kind of thing at such a young age was, you know, it's honestly kind of like that city comparison. It's kind of like being tossed into an environment where a lot of things go on that maybe isn't the best for young kids, but it really gave us, it didn't force us perhaps, but it gave us the opportunity to grow up. Absolutely. And know a little bit more about the world, because we've only seen the pretty things.
I remember some days where we would just get right out of school and drive straight down an hour and a half to Detroit, and then we would just spend nights, like spend all weekends, spend a couple school nights down there at a hotel, and we'd just get up and spend the days in the studio. And even if we weren't recording to track a song, it was always like we were getting used to that new environment.
It's kind of like a growing family, and these people who are involved in your work, which is something kind of very personal. And, you know, things get ugly when you start, you know, messing with people's, you know, personal things. But
yeah,
I think that it all worked out very, very kind of perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I highly doubt any artist goes into the studio with all thumbs up and smiles the entire time. I mean, it's not really art at that point. Even when you're creating your own personal
art. It could
art,
be John Denver.
That's a good point, but
that's an exception maybe.
I was terrified for that show. I don't know why, but I was just
first arena show ever, I think.
Yeah, that actually, you know what? That is why. That was our first time in a huge arena. It all started with our sound check when we showed up and we stepped on the stage, and it looked right. It didn't feel right yet. It looked so great and huge, and then and it was like,
just a massive
this isn't a garage anymore. Are we going to be loud enough? That's not our worry. But we had all sorts of things I had all sorts of things that were going through my head that were never there before. And then the biggest thing is we're on Bob Seger's stage right now, and that was really cool. It was an enlightening experience because we were fortunate that it was in our hometown, one of our closest ever to our hometown shows.
Dow Event Center.
About 30 minutes away from where we grew up. So that felt really nice, and we had a lot of family there, and we had a lot of support there, and that helped being where we were at as a band at the time, because we were an opening band for Bob Seger, and we knew that the majority of the crowd had no idea who we were.
Yeah, so it was incredible. And, we came in, and he was sitting there at his piano smoking a cigarette, playing Let It Be. And then he kind of like fumbled a note or something and just started laughing, and that was that. And because we were just watching, and our sound check was next, and he kind of like stopped the song. He kind of like looked around. He's like, "Hey, are you guys a Greta Van Fleet?" And we were like, "Yeah, hi." And
moving
he's like,
back further.
He's like, "Yeah, we'll be off the stage real soon." And we're like, "You're fine."
Yeah, no, take all the time you need.
You're good.
Elton is someone that, boy, is he a figure.
Yeah, here we go. He's got so much stuff going on, too.
There's so many different approaches to this also, but we grew up with a decent amount of Elton John in our catalog. He was one of the best at what he does, which is to almost personify everything. Like the music, the look, the personality, and like he definitely, and he was also one of those figures that was so different than all the other artists you listen up or you would grow up listening to. He was one that really intrigued me always. There are bands like Cream and Queen and Hendrix, and you kind of like know what they're about, but I always had this curiosity of what he was about, and he always kind of like drew me in that sense. He had this mystique, but also this extravagantness to him. And then later in life, we really started, Sam and I at least, we really started digging into his music. Like there was so much. And right around that same time, like it was when we received the call and the invite to perform at his AIDS Foundation benefit, and it was just kind of a really, really cool moment, like a really cool block of a couple months in my life where I was like, yeah, this is something special, and he's a really special human being.
And see, this is where we get the perceived notions and the big juxtapositions of what we actually do. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those moments that work exactly like you would expect. And exactly what you would think, even with all the stereotypes of rock and roll, and all the tall tales, and he came walking on that stage with us, and it was easy. Like once he got up and he sat down at the piano, it was like he was like a part of the band. So
growing up, we saw Metallica everywhere. It was in all the video games. It was pinball, yeah, Metallica pinball posters everywhere. A lot of our friends were listening to that music, so it was, they're a statement band, and to have been invited to go out on tour, not only is it super flattering, but it's also just a different level of our careers, honestly.
Like an honor.
Yeah, it is an honor. Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah.
Very grateful for that.
Very grateful for that. My favorite thing about Highway Tune is because it's garnered so much attention. It's kind of really cool to say that our largest song at the time had no chorus.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unconventional.
Break the rules.
Break the rules.
Which is it's literally the first song we ever wrote.
Our first baby.
Yeah, first baby. And we had a few recordings of it actually before, but like I said, when we went in the studio with Al, we learned up quick a lot of things. We got hip to a lot of techniques and things that we never even thought of or could ever dream about.
Approaches, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and kind of taking that perspective, we recorded that whole EP for Black Smoke Rising EP.
Yeah.
And that was, it felt really, really great just to have music out there, like on, an official Apple Music, Spotify, whatever platform. And it was the first song. It's the most kind of basic, like slap you in the face, like Greta Van Fleet rock and roll. My recent favorite right now is Always There.
Yeah.
And because its journey was kind of the opposite of most of our songs, because Jake kind of brought in that initial kind of open tuning, crazy tuning riff, and we kind of started just working on it. We were working on Anthem of the Peaceful Army, and it just unfolded itself. It like revealed itself to us very, very quickly because we were just in the studio environment. It was like one of the last songs we recorded. And,
we weren't expecting a child that
No,
day.
not
at all.
Yeah. So I think that all the elements kind of just came together very quickly. We headed back to Detroit after recording in Nashville, and Josh did vocals on it, and I'm pretty sure we just did a couple dubs. Like I did some of the echo bass stuff and some mellotron on it, and it was done. And that's what I think was so amazing about it, is it exists in this such small frame of time.
Mm-hmm.
So small that I almost don't really remember it. But when we look back on something like Highway Tune, like I remember when that was written, I remember when we were working on it, I remember when we added the breakdown, and I remember when we recorded it, got it mastered, and released it.
Age of Man was a fun one. That was a really cool one because that was at a weird point where we had been on the road for a while, and then all of a sudden we had given time to write and record, not professionally record, but just to start writing. And we got out in nature. We found a cabin at the top of a hill. You've probably heard this story. It was a haunted ass cabin with ghosts and
in the Chattanooga mountain range. Yeah.
And one night, again, one of those things where there was a riff, there were a bunch of chords. It wasn't a song. There was an idea, and it came together pretty quickly. Again, it was one of those that I don't even have distinct memories. I just have distinct feelings of that night.
Right, and we would often kind of write until the sun started rising over the tens of thousands of trees.
Yeah.
And it was a really gorgeous moment in our lives, I think, and we were so isolated from everybody after such an insane year of touring and playing every single club in the world, and doing a whole American tour, doing a whole European tour, and then some, and being so young and impressionable too. Like we were probably 18.
Yeah.
This
maybe
was
even younger.
Yeah, this was 2 years ago probably. We were so young. Where has our youth gone? But yeah, it was a very interesting kind of time, and we got a lot of really positive work done. I mean, there's such a difference between mainstream music now and good music that it's almost frightening. So, but I think as a society, we're working kind of into something that's a little bit more truthful And I think more and more people are kind of responding to that. And I think as long as the music makes you feel good and is interesting and perhaps even, let's take a daring step, intriguing, then I think that it's something that people will respond to. And I think, if the energy's there and it translates into the crowd, nothing can go wrong. I'm not sure I have a lot of hope for the people who go out to make, I suppose, generic rock music. Because, I hear a lot of bands kind of echoing on the radio, like doing the same thing that they either did last album cycle or doing something that somebody else did last album cycle. And it's predictable and it's boring and it's not intriguing. But I think there's a lot of people out there who are doing some really amazing things. I think that it's just important to stay truthful to your music and not pay attention too much to what the people are saying or what the word on the street is about you or who you are, because it's very difficult. It's a life journey to find yourself and find your own music and find what you want to create. Every time we kind of try to do something as a group, it's like we're reaching higher, and we got to the mountaintop and then then we say, let's go to the moon, and I hope that it will always keep going. And, I hope that we can maintain that kind of striving for greatness and, unaccepting to do anything less than what's perfect and what's truthful.